Good morning, everybody. My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Media Company. Today's topic, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about quarterbacks, and I'm going to break down some of the things I've seen from past games, guys. I still have not had the opportunity to review the Tampa Bay game film. Let me put that together correctly, guys, and make assessments yet, guys. That should be released today, sometime today, that they should give us access to that. So I'll be able to kind of start breaking that down and making individual videos about what's going on there. But a lot of great questions have rolled through where you guys have been asking me questions about kind of like what is this whole situation going on with Jalen Hurts and whether or not he can read the field or not. And I keep trying to tell you guys it's complex. I see a lot of takes everywhere, guys. It's not any particular content creator that does it. It's a lot of guys that do it just because it takes a lot to understand the quarterback position. And you have to really understand why something – it's not enough to say you missed this guy. You have to understand why something was missed. And it's not always the quarterback's fault. That's why I always tell people I see when things are open and the ball doesn't get to the player, but you kind of have to relax until you can see the coach's film to determine what happened in the sequence that caused that. So I want to start off by what I thought was just an excellent community question that came through. And, I want to shout out my guy JP because JP asked me, I think really it was a great question. And this is something that I really wanted to make sure that got discussed. And what I'm going to do here is I want to share my screen with you guys. I want to show you one of the questions he asked me, which I thought it was a great question. So, all right, let me see if I can't get this up here. Boom. All right, so what I'm showing you right from the jump, guys, is it's going to be a couple of things here. The first thing I'm showing you is going to be the question that JP asked me. And then I'm going to go into kind of a lengthy explanation that kind of brings everything into focus and talks about what is actually going on. So let me go ahead and stop, escape it. Go back to the live stream, guys. Sorry, it takes a long time to get this stuff in. All right. So JP had asked me basically about quarterback reads and kind of like what it means. So basically, like, why is this happening with Jalen Hurts to where, like, guys like you are saying, you can't really determine whether or not he has the green light to throw certain routes, to get the ball into certain routes. And I think it's a really difficult discussion to make just because it requires a lot of movement. So he says, yes, the reads, what the quarterback is told to look at and ignore. I guess the complaint would be, why are coaches not letting or teaching Hurts to look for those other routes? And why are wide receivers getting frustrated for not getting the ball if everyone in the room has been told you're just a decoy route, you're not getting looked at on this play? So I honestly thought that was an excellent question, JP, and I thought that this is a good thing to kind of talk about for today because I think this is a very important conversation. And what I really think it starts with is understanding the different type of reads. So you really have two type of reads in the NFL, and most quarterbacks really run a hybrid of that read system. You have what's called a progression read, and you have what's called a coverage read, okay? So a progression read, simply put, means you're going through your progressions, right? You got your first progression, your second progression, your third progression. Sometimes it's a 2 progression read. Sometimes it's a 3 progression read. You could have quarterbacks that get all the way into a 4 or 5 progression read. I can promise you that is very unlikely happening with a guy who's in a 20-game range of starts, guys. It's very unlikely to be happening right now. So it's normally going to be a 2 to 3 read progression. It's normally where a quarterback in this area would be in terms of where their skill set lies right now, guys. When you do a progression read, everything starts pre-snap, okay? You have to make determinations pre-snap. And it's not like coverage read where I'm reading the coverage per se to know to go where the football. I'm reading the coverage pre-snap for a different reason on a progression read, guys. So on a progression read, I'm reading the coverage to know where my wide receiver depths are going to be versus that coverage. You guys remember when I kept saying that there was earlier in the season, like when we played Kansas City and a few other teams, I kept saying I noticed a problem with Jalen Hurts' depth and his dropbacks are not matching up. They're not syncing with the wide receiver's depth in the route tree. And that's a big problem to have if you're progressing, if you're doing a progression read. You cannot have that issue because what we're talking about here is a rhythm step. Okay. Rhythm steps mean you're either taking 0 step, 1 step, 3 step, 5 steps, 7 steps. But when you hit that number where it's a 3-step drop, whether it's a 5-step drop, whether it's a 7-step drop, you have to then be in rhythm with the receiver's route. Right. And then that's where you get into the timing and anticipation arguments about, okay, once you hit that, you should know the receiver's depth. You should not be waiting for that receiver to get open. You have to then get the ball out of your hands. You have to throw that guy open if you got the right look and coverage there. Situation is when you have this type of read, a progression read. So you get to the rhythm step. Say let's just for simple simplification of the issue. We're under center. He takes the ball under center. He hits that 5th step. Okay. Now he's at the rhythm step. He's got to get that ball out of his hands, right? But it ain't there. It's not there. The first progression is gone. So the second progression comes off of what's called a gather step, or what I call hitching. That means when you gather and you collect yourself, you'll see kind of a bounce, right? That's where you go to your second read. That's where your second read comes from in that progression. If your second read's not there off of a progression read, your third read will come from a guy resetting his feet again. He's got to resettle his feet again and then go on to where the third read is. Normally, the third read is going to be a little bit of a distance away from where you started your first and second read from. A lot of times, your third read is probably going to be something to the flats. It might come back down to something. It's normally something in that realm, guys, is how this kind of works. So progression reads, everybody hates them, but to be honest with you, it's the easiest. It's the easier way of teaching quarterbacks how to play, and it's certainly a lot easier than something like a coverage read, which we're going to get into, and I'm going to explain the complexity of a coverage read. But here's the deal: there's some very, very key issues with a progression read. Stop me if you've heard this before, because I'm going to get stopped. Okay, one of the biggest problems you're going to have with a progression read is you stare down your first receiver because you have to. It's predicated on when you hit your 5th step, your 3rd step, whatever your rhythm step is. That's your read. So you can get caught staring. That's a big problem with progression read quarterbacks, is you kind of get caught staring at your first read. The second thing is that a lot of times when you run the film on a progression read, you will see guys later in a progression break wide open, but they've been removed. They've been removed from the play, right? This is where I tell you guys, I hate when I see man coverage and a dude loses off the line of scrimmage, right? Because if I got a guy's man press and he was supposed to be in my read, if he gets knocked off, if he gets knocked off at the snap, off his release, I have to remove him from the progression. In a progression read, I have to take that guy out. The problem is that he might win at the top of his route stem. Do you get a player I might be referring to here? Rager's good at doing this to us. So where he'll win at the top of the route stem, but he's losing at the initial release. You can see that guy on film and you'll be like, man, that dude was wide open. That's kind of an issue on coaching, to be honest with you, because coaching has to then figure out the player's strengths and weaknesses and then putting them in the progression where they should be because of where their skill set lies. So, I mean, you're going to have issues where guys are going to naturally stare down receivers because that's part of what a progression read is. And then you're also going to have issues where guys are flashing late coming open, but they've been removed from the progression because of the release off the line of scrimmage, or just that they're on the opposite side of the field and they weren't originally part of the progression to begin with. That's a progression read. The alternative to this is going to be a coverage read. Coverage reads are simple and hard to define, right? Coverage read means you're reading the coverage, right? It's a pre-snap thing. This is something I told you guys that the one game where Gardner Minshew came in versus the Jets, I thought he was really good at. He was really good at the pre-snap reading of the coverage and then basing his reads upon what he saw pre-snap on coverage. That's coverage reading. And when you read coverage, man, the simple form is that you're looking at the coverage that's out there and you're looking at leverage from players. And depending upon the leverage, depending upon the coverage that you're reading, depends upon your progressions, right? The big problem with coverage are it's really hard to do. And the way you can tell the quarterback is running a ton of coverage reads, and most guys mix this stuff up, guys. It's not like you only do one or the other. The real issue you're going to have with coverage read is a lot of stuff can't be discovered until after the fact. This is where you see guys getting stuff coming in from the press box, and they're on their pads and they're looking over coverage and stuff. That normally gives you a pretty good indication they're coverage reading in the game. When you see them down there and they're looking through, that means that they're definitely doing some coverage reads in that game because they're looking through to see the coverage, see the leverage, see what's being played, and they're going to try to attack it again later. So that's a pretty good indication. The problem with that is number one, if you're not particularly great at reading coverage, it puts you in a bad situation. But number two, even really good quarterbacks can get taken advantage of by coverage disguise. That's where the defensive coordinators can disguise coverage on you and put you in a lot of trouble. Can put you in a world of trouble if you're not careful there. Now, there's a middle ground. There's a middle ground that most systems incorporate, most systems do. And it's a combination of reading coverage with a combination of your progression. That's where most guys are. That's where most of the NFL is. They're right there in the middle. And if you go to any publication and you look up like how to teach a quarterback how to read, defenses, you're going to get the same exact route scheme pretty much. Everyone uses this one as the golden ticket. And it has to do with the curl routes, right? It's called 3 curls. And truth be told, it's really 2 curls and a hitch, to be honest. And it's the marquee play, if you will, of showing you how you blend progression reads along with coverage reads. Okay. So the way this works is that you're normally going to key in on one player. It could be a Mike linebacker. It could be a safety. It could be a certain leverage being played by corner. It just depends upon what the read is. When you're in something like a 3 curl, like I said, when you have a 3 curl design route, I'm reading the Mike. I want to know the Mike linebacker and what the Mike linebacker does, because the Mike linebacker is the person who's going to really determine what I do with the football. And I'll just kind of flash this up on the screen for you guys for a second so you can see what I'm talking about, what a 3 curl route is and why you're reading the Mike, because I think it's really easy to distinguish once you see that route put in front of you. Then you kind of get, okay, I get what these guys are doing. I get what they're reading. But like I said, it is easy to make mistakes based upon reading coverage, guys. You can get yourself in trouble here. Hang on, I'm trying to get this pulled up, guys. All right, let me add it back to the stream again. Sorry, it's taking a second to load, guys. All right, so you got, really? Now it wants to go to the funny one. Give it 1 second, guys, it'll pull up. All right, so you can see your 3 curl routes. Really, this thing really wants to keep playing around, guys. All right, I'm going to remove this one because it keeps getting in the way. All right, you have 3 curls here, guys. You see the outside receivers were curling. Hang on. We're going to quit having this happen because I'm going to remove this guy from the screen. Sorry, JP. I love your question. That was a great question, but it's like he's pulling us into the wrong direction here. All right. It's basically what you got here is you have your 2 outside receivers who are curling, guys. Think back to the play call that they had. Why does it keep doing this? This is ridiculous. Think about the play call where you heard Aikman and those guys talking, and they were talking about, oh, if Devontae Smith isn't releasing, basically, if Devontae Smith's not releasing underneath on a drag route versus that zone coverage, he's going to come open, right? Well, when you have these, I don't know why it keeps doing this, guys. I'm going to remove this and then bring it back up because it's, for whatever reason, it does not want to work with me today. But for whatever reason, guys, they decided to run that drag route versus the coverage. Now, like I said, they could be half field reading. The other half of the field could be completely different. There's a lot of reasons why something may or may not be going on. It's hard to say, guys, to be quite honest. But with that said, 3 curls is a very common one to use. See if it pulls back up again. All right, you see your mic in the middle of the field here. You see where that mic can go 3 different ways. All right, the mic can drop straight back. Sorry, it's going to keep doing this, but the mic can drop straight back, right, and dictate where you're going to go with the football. You can go to the weak side of the offense, or you can go to the strong side of the offense, right? You can go weak side towards your will or strong side towards your Sam. If you go strong side towards your Sam, that's going to take away your first curl route, your first progression, right? So if he's going back towards the Sam, then my second progression, guys, is going to clearly be back to the weak side of the field where I'm going to hit that X receiver who's on that curl route deep, okay? Because that's where the spacing is going to be. Exactly, Jalen. It's about the vacated windows. Now, if he goes to the will, if he drops back into the will side of things, right, towards the will linebacker, if he drops out that way, then I'm going to come back over here to the field side, and I'm going to hit that flanker that's running that deep curl. That's when you're taking a combination of things like progression read, and you're taking a combination of things like a coverage read, and you're combining them together, right? Pre-snap, I'm reading one guy. Then post-snap, I'm watching what he does, and that's going to dictate where my reads go. I still have to use a rhythm step, guys. So when I hit my 5th step, my 3rd step, whatever it is, that's still my first read. I need to pay attention to the mic and see if he's taking away my first read. But the aspect I'm reading of the coverage is depending upon what that linebacker does, I'm either going to stick with my first read or my second read is going to get changed by what he does. So my second read could get changed by, okay, like he went towards the will linebacker, so I'm going to go over here towards the Sam side of things, the strong side of the formation, and throw that hitch route. Or he went towards the strong side, towards the Sam linebacker, and now I'm going to go over here towards the weak side of the formation, and I'm going to attack that way. That's really the way these things work in the NFL, guys. It's a complex conversation because until you can see the all 22 film, guys, a lot of these dudes are making huge assumptions about things that they don't know what they're talking about. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to be truthful. Like a lot of these dudes are making some big assumptions about things they have no clue what they're talking about, to be quite honest. And there's no way that you can know these things without seeing the film. You can know that, like, oh crap, I saw this one guy break open and the ball wasn't there, but you can't really know what the reads are. You can't really know what's being read. You can't, there's certain aspects of this stuff cannot be known before you see the all 22. The coaches don't even honestly know until they see the all 22. To be quite honest about the situation. All right, guys, let's go around and do some comments here. What's up, Dante? How you doing, man? Appreciate you tuning in, buddy. Scoob-Doo, how you doing, man? Good morning. NFC East Beast, good morning, Gates Grills. What's up, man? How you doing, sir? NFC Beast said, look to me like Hurts was back to poor pocket presence and throwing off platform, poor accuracy. I think he's been getting away with a lot of the platform issues to begin with, NFC East Beast, to be honest with you. But yes, I think it reared its ugly head and caused a lot of balls to be really bad. I mean, there was the one play to where he just kind of threw off his toes and tried to float it up in the air, which was kind of like, there's no way of defending that. Like, that's not a coverage issue. That's a very flawed throwing base issue. Jose said, whenever you can you take a look at Carson Strong? The dude is a statue in the pocket, but seems to have great throwing abilities. Yeah, I'm familiar with Carson Strong, guys. Yeah, we're definitely getting into that time of the season, guys. Everything's coming up on that. Guten Morgan. What's up, Jalen? How you doing? Dante said, wow. He said, can we get a how to play football video? I mean, wow. Yeah, no problem, guys. We can do all that kind of stuff. We can break it down by position groups. I'm trying to get, I want to get Jalen. I want to get, there's another guy on here. I believe his name is Jacob. Both of these guys have played collegiately along the offensive line. I would love to get their feedback on Jeff Stoutland's running scheme and the way Nick Sirianni is playing off it. I would love to have those two guys come on the channel, me give them some film to look at, and them just kind of give me their eyes as being former collegiate offensive linemen and what they're seeing. So definitely I want to get into some stuff like that, guys. But I got to make sure that Jalen has the time, and I got to hit Jacob up and see what he's got time to do as well. Takeem the Dream, what's up, buddy? He said, would you go after Cedric Wilson Jr. in free agency as a cheaper option to Allen Robinson? I definitely think you have to have plan Bs and plan Cs, Takeem. And I think that you have a very smart way of looking at that. Yes, because like we talked about it when we were talking in the stream last weekend, I talked about, if you miss on Mike Williams and you can't get a trade partner for, a guy like, everyone wants to talk about going and getting certain guys from other teams, but if you can't get those dudes and you miss on a Mike Williams, then like, what's next? And that's kind of a hard discussion, right? Because it's hard to say. But yeah, I definitely think you need to have plan Bs and plan Cs for if you miss on guys, because there's a lot of dudes that are going to be better than what we're throwing out on the field, to be quite honest. Jalen said it's all about vacated windows. You're 100% right there. It's 1,000% about vacated windows. It's about where the look should be with the ball based upon the coverage and the read you have from your step. Takeem said Eagles should look to sign Marcus Mariota or Jacoby Brissett to compete for the starting job next year. Takeem, but wouldn't you just, I get Marcus Mariota maybe being a similar complement to what you're doing with Hurts, so you're not necessarily changing, that's a zone read quarterback. You're not necessarily changing up your offense drastically in terms of the competition there. But when I look at a guy like, Jacoby Brissett, former NC State guy, played at UF, then transferred to NC State guy I'm very familiar with, right? Really good in the pocket. He's very good against pressure. He beats pressure a lot. I just don't know that Jacoby Brissett's really going to provide you that much of a competition. I just think Jalen Hurts is a better player. But he would definitely be a good backup. But I just think that you already have that kind of in, why not just kind of let Minshew and him compete? You know what I mean? You already got a guy on a rookie contract here that's going to be a lot cheaper than Mariota or Brissett's going to be. Those two guys are going to get paid. Jalen said, this is a simple progression that the quarterback is expected to make in less than half a second, which is a lot easier said than done. Thank you, Jalen. You're 1,000% right. Tell him, Coach. Appreciate you, Philip. How you guys doing this morning, man? What's up, Steve? How you doing, buddy? He said, Steve, you should compare Hurts' interception before a half and last year's Dallas game. He's so late. Steve, I made a video about the Dallas game last year. I broke down. It was the first game, and I broke it down, and people said I was a Hurts hater at the time, but they just didn't understand where I was coming from. But I broke it down, and I said that the Dallas game alerted me to the fact that Jalen struggles to throw in the NFL windows. It was the first time that I pointed out on the film, and this was a year ago. I pointed out on the film that he's struggling to throw dudes open. And Dallas kind of looked at what Arizona did and then altered it a little bit. And then basically said, we're going to make the windows tighter to throw into, and we're going to bring pressure. And to be honest with you, there was some stuff left on the field in that game. Vester Lettuce Choke said, morning, fellas. What's up, buddy? The Gambling Hippie said, Jalen Hurts has a much higher ceiling than many free agent quarterbacks. If he doesn't work, then we can just draft someone next year. Jalen said, just let me know. Yeah, man, definitely. I'm going to hit up Jacob and find out, like, what his schedule is. I definitely know that he's interested in coming on, but I want to get you guys the film ahead of time so you guys have a chance to really see the film, Jalen, and be ready for when we come in, because I'm going to really rely on your guys' eyes to explain to everybody what you're seeing about Stoutland's, his scheme. And I'll probably hit you guys up so that way you can be like, can you give us this game? Give us this game to look at. So that way you guys will have a chance to pick which game you want then. I'll record everything and get it out to you guys. Rosa Stevens said, Jalen Hurts as a Tim Tebow will never be a great thrower of the ball, but can do everything else. I disagree with that to an extent, Rosa. I think that the Tim Tebow comparisons are extreme. Tim Tebow's throwing motion is far worse than what Jalen Hurts is. I think that's a oversimplification of what's going on. Bobby Murphy said, what free agent receiver would you bring in? I think you go after Mike Williams because I think it's the right money, Bobby Murphy, versus the production versus the actual need. He's got familiarity with the coaching staff here. But, ultimately, Bobby, I don't know who these dudes know and who they like. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're assuming he likes Shane Steichen. We're assuming he likes Nick Sirianni, but I don't know if he likes those dudes. You know what I mean? But he has a relationship with them at least. I don't know how he feels about Jalen Hurts. I don't know how he feels about the Eagles front office. That's the other side of this, Bobby, that, like, it gets to me with people because they're always like, get rid of this guy, and then let's go get this free agent target. And it's kind of like, yeah, but if you start detracting from your team, it's a pretty hard sell for the front office to make to a free agent to come into the situation. Because if you get rid of that player, you better find a guy that those guys want to play with at the quarterback position. You get what I'm saying, guys? Like, sometimes people, they say these things, but I need to know your next plan. Like, what's your plan B and C here? Dante say, why does it seem like with Jonathan, defense can't trick quarterbacks into turnovers more? I think that there's a disconnect, especially early in the season. I think there was a disconnect between the depth of the coverage and the pressure being generated by the defensive line. Because Jonathan Gannon, obviously 16% blitz rate, because Jonathan Gannon doesn't bring pressure that often, you run into these problems, right? Especially if you have the depth. You need to give your defensive line time. And in return, your defensive line needs to give your secondary time. You get what I'm saying? Like it's a chemistry thing between those two groups. PJ Walker is a good third option behind Hurts and Minshew. I haven't really looked at PJ Walker, man. I have to take a look at film on him. Michael Gallup, way better. Michael Gallup's got the injury, though, guys. He busted up his knee with the ACL. Sam said, I can't believe there's somebody on here actually saying that Jalen Hurts is like Tim Tebow take. It's from somebody who lives in Denver. Jalen Hurts is by far a better passer than Tim Tebow. Yeah, exactly. Go get Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk's a great player, Francis. I agree with you on that one. He's very athletic, and he's what Rager was supposed to be. But I just don't know. Like, he's got off the field issues that have kind of hampered him, right? It's more of his attitude is what's got him in trouble in San Francisco. So you might be on to something that San Francisco might be willing to part with him. But do we have everything in house to handle a complex situation like that? I do think Jalen is kind of a guy that he's very businesslike. Maybe getting him in here with a guy like Jalen, maybe he can relate to Jalen. These dudes seem to love him that came out of the same draft class. That, those year or two before Jalen, year or two after Jalen, they seem to really love Jalen. Like, he's got a little bit of a fanfare among players. Maybe something like that would work, Francis. You might be onto something there, but hard to say, man, because I don't know the exact nature of what's going on. I just know the reports are he's got issues off field. I don't know what they are. You get what I'm saying? I have no clue exactly what occurred. Jalen said, also, one thing I would like to see is how our screen game looks on all 22 film. Trey Thomas mentioned the O-line is misreading their landmarks based on coverage, and I can't get it out of my head. Huh. Interesting. I'd like to see your perspective on that. I'd never thought to look there, Jalen, but we can do that. So let me go ahead and write that one down. So screen game, offensive line landmark. Yeah, we can do that, man. No problem. Jose said, do you feel the rest of the roster, all positions besides quarterback, is a few pieces away from a deep playoff team, or are we still in a rebuild phase? Jose, that is a really good question, dude. That's an excellent question. Truth be told, I think it depends upon what we do in the draft and free agency, because next year we're not playing a last place schedule. We're playing a second place schedule. So the schedule, theoretically, you never know. I mean, some dudes that finish second place might, they might be going through some stuff this offseason, so they might not be the same team. But theoretically, we're playing a tougher schedule, meaning games are going to be harder to win. So that's an excellent question. I mean, I don't really know the answer to it until we see free agency, until we see the draft, and just kind of like where Jalen Hurts is, or whatever we do at the quarterback position. I don't mean to presume what the organization's going to do, but where our quarterback is, no matter who it is, where they are in terms of their abilities, it's hard to say. Francis said, when you play 10 yards off, anyone can complete a pass. It's true. It's true. Anything that's 9 yards and below is open, right? And then even if you get, I thought what Guyton did in the Chargers game was smart, where he really pushed Steven Nelson. Like, he was getting vertical, then he would just basically get to that top of that route stem, sink those hips, and go right to the out route or right to a hitch or a comeback or a curl, and he had all the space in the world to catch the ball. Easy third down completion on that play for a first down. Jalen said, if Gannon leaves, who could be real options to replace him? See, that's a great question, Jalen. I don't know who's theoretically the real option, right? It's easier said than done. I'll be honest with you, Jalen. I like Patrick Graham a lot from the Giants. You guys know that I said he was the only coach I thought was worth a dang on that entire coaching staff. I like Patrick Graham a lot as a defensive coordinator. I love the style of play he plays. I love how aggressive he is. And I think if you gave him more talent, he would have really good results. But I'm not going to lie to you. Vic Fangio, he's a brilliant defensive mind. Vic Fangio is a brilliant defensive mind. Mike Zimmer's, he's an experienced guy, and he's running the same exact system as Gannon, pretty much. I mean, we can argue that there are some things that Gannon does that Eberflus does, and it's not really Zimmer, but it's within the realm of, we're not changing too much up. So, I mean, I think all three of those guys, make sense, but, the Eagles, they're probably not going to go in the routes that are expected. Take him for less money, he'll have to sign. Chris Godwin is greater than Juju Smith-Schuster, in my opinion. Takeem, I agree. But which one is more likely to sign? Is probably the way I would look at it. Is Chris Godwin more likely to sign with Philly or Juju? I don't know that either one of them is necessarily more likely to sign per se, Takeem, but either one of those guys are an improvement, to be honest. I hate to say that because, like, in previous years, we could have these complex arguments about, the Eagles being one of those top guys, destinations and free agency, and that we could, lure these in so we don't have to just take an improvement. We want the best guy we can possibly get. I think this year we're almost kind of in that boat of where you just got to take an improvement. Steve White said, Whitaker, my bad, man. He said, with the 3 first-round picks, do we have enough money to sign 3 first-rounders? What would that look like money-wise? So it's currently, Steve, it's like $8.7 million, but you have the rule of 51, right? So you have to carry 51 players on your roster no matter what. So the draft picks, they're not really taking away that aspect of money or adding to it, right? So basically, you've already paid that $705,000 to 3 players no matter what. So if you look at your first-round value, you take the 8.7 and you subtract, 7 times 3 is like 2.15 or something like that, guys. So you're going to take that $2 million away from the 8, and you're going to get stuck with somewhere around high fives to $6 million is what it's going to cost you to sign 3 first-round picks. I honestly don't anticipate us drafting 3 first-rounders. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not going to happen because, obviously it's in the realm of possibility. We have the pick, so, it's clearly in the realm of possibility. But, you know what I mean? Like, it's probably not going to happen. They'll probably trade back and get leverage in 2023 if they can. But the other side to this is, Steve, is that other teams might not want to trade 2023's picks for 2022. So it's kind of a back and forth balancing with that, to be honest. If Gannon goes, I want Vic Fangio. It's a brilliant defensive mind. Francis said, yeah, we need a locker room guy. Jalen's really quick in that rebuild. He said rebuild. Christian Brown said, I would love Devin Lloyd or Nakobe Dean with the first two, then either a cornerback or a wide receiver with the third, or is Jordan Davis is available at 19. That's been nice too. Look, I would say that any player you can get that can impact your defensive line, they got, I know there's not too many safeties that are up high. You got the one kid out of Notre Dame, and then it's kind of a drop off for a while, but we definitely need a safety. We need an impact safety. We need impact linebackers. I think you got a better shot at getting an impact linebacker in this draft, to be honest. We still need a boundary side receiver, in my opinion. You still could use – look, I know people hate it when you talk about offensive line, but if Linderbaum or Akeem Ekwamu, sorry, that dude's name is hard as crap to say. The NC State tackle that's like really versatile, really athletic, really versatile, can play inside, outside, play pretty much everything. If one of those dudes are there, I mean, I would be tempted to take them just because you win in the you win in the trenches. You know what I mean? You're definitely going to win in the trenches, and we got some guys that are getting up there in age. And I definitely think those two guys in particular, I think they're Jeff Stoutland type players. But I don't disagree that, you got to look. I like Sauce Gardner a lot from Cincinnati. It's just, I don't know where some of these dudes are going to get taken. They might get taken ahead of where we're picking. Takeem said Alden Tate is a good big body free agent option to replace J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. The Gambling Hippie said, if we trade up, who do you think Howie and the front office would have as a target from where we sit now? That is a really, really good question, the Gambling Hippie, because most front offices only trade up for one position, to be honest. Now, what my hope would be is that they would value either corner, safety, or linebacker, or an impact defensive lineman enough to go get them. So I guess it really just depends upon who you think is, an impact player along those position groups, right? Leal, I think he could be a pretty good player in the NFL. So, I mean, if we don't have to go that high up and move into position to go get him, I think he could be an impact player on the defensive line. If one of these defensive ends starts to slip, and I've seen lately, I can't say that guy's name, Kafarkis. How do you ever say that dude's name, man? You know what I'm talking about. I've seen lately that he's being projected somewhere to go between 12 and 20. So you might not have to move up to get one of these defensive linemen. It's hard to say, but hard to say. Tommy said, are you worried Gannon is the next Sean McDermott? I don't think they're going to be as rash in the decision to move on from Gannon. I definitely think Gannon is going to end up with a head coaching job at some point. So I don't think Gannon is going to be a long-term guy in Philly no matter what, because I think he's going to I think he's honestly going to get a head coaching job within the next couple of years. With that said, am I worried that Philly fans might be a little too harsh on Gannon and not realize the guy's actually developing and he's getting better? Sure. With that said, do I have concerns about Gannon's system? Yeah, I do, because it's very passive. It's a very passive system, to be honest. And if you're not creating turnovers outside of that passive system he has, it's kind of hard to succeed like that against better teams. And that does worry me about his system, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, we ran Sean McDermott out of town, and McDermott turned out to be a really good coach. Sam the Artist said Mike Zimmer would be a logical replacement. He tutored Gannon in Atlanta and Minnesota before he went to – yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I like Zimmer a lot, and obviously it would make sense. I think Vic Fangio is probably the better mind, if I'm being honest. I think Vic Fangio is I highly respect what Fangio does. With that said, Sam, you're right. Mike Zimmer's pretty much a plug-in guy, and he's a very experienced coach. So you got the added benefit of having an experienced guy that can lock down the other side of the football. Jose said, any good free agent safeties this year? Not really. There's not a lot, man. There's not a lot. This is not a great free agent or draft class, to be quite honest. Now, I will caution people, you can still trade. You can still make a trade. Philip said, in that last game against Tom Brady, how would you grade all three phases, offense, defense, special teams? Philip, offense was bad, man. Took you 4 possessions to get momentum. That's an F to me. That's a straight F. You get a failing grade for that, in my opinion. Defense, I'd say it's C-. still had the same problems we've had with all year, and they still kind of put us in a bad position, right? Every one of us said, you cannot fall behind double digits to Tampa Bay or you're asking for it. We asked for it, and they gave it to us. And although Jonathan Gannon did clean it up and he gave us like 4 straight possessions and an opportunity to get back in the game, you gave up those 17 points before you started to stop them. And I think that's a problem, man. I think it's a problem. Even Nick said that once they fell behind 24-0, like he started pressing it. He started pressing it because, you know, the game dictated that. So I would say that's a C- to me. Special teams, I got to give it a D-, man. You got to drop, fumble. I mean, you know, it's more than just kick returns and punt returns, but there's a lot of bad plays out there. Tim said, would getting rid of first this year for one next year and invade Jalen doesn't work to get a guy like Young or a Stroud be a good idea? Sorry, guys. Yeah, I think that's exactly why you do it, right? You're creating assurances in both ways, Tim, to be honest. I think a lot of people think that the 2023 draft is going to be a little better at more position groups than 22. I do think 22 is very strong along the defensive line. With that said, I think that 23 is viewed to have a little bit more versatility among all position groups in terms of the strength of the draft. So you could look at it as like you are creating assurances for the quarterback situation, but you're also, you know, if Jalen or one of these guys turns out to, you know, take big steps forward and you start feeling like you got that guy, you're just continuously building draft capital because you are going to have to pay Jalen before you have to pay another quarterback. He doesn't have a 5th-year option. So you're going to have to pay him sooner than you would have to pay other quarterbacks. So you need to put a young roster around him earlier than you would with another guy because that other guy would have a 5th-year option if he was a first-round pick. So we don't have that luxury. So that's kind of plus or minus to doing that, per se. NFC East B said, time to start talking about Barrett, Brooks, Dillard, and Graham. Barnett, Barrett, Brooks. Sorry, NFC East Beast. That changed the meaning of what you were saying. Barnett, Brooks, Dillard, and Graham. It is. We're going to get in the offseason, guys. I'm probably going to make videos starting today in the evening. I'm probably going to start making videos about free agency, looking at the contracts for you guys and giving you guys the pertinent information about the contracts and what it would do depending upon the situations. For you guys that are here, you guys know I'm not projecting any of this stuff happens. I'm just telling you the outcomes that could occur and then what happens from a financial standpoint given the outcome. Rosa Stevens said, I believe we should focus on defense in this draft, elite cornerback and linebacker, and with the 3rd first round, maybe a receiver. I think it's a good option. Jose said, we need to know Howie's sentiment on Hurts. I agree, Jose. I don't know. I don't know where the front office stands on this stuff. How much does coordinators affect all this stuff, like the coordinators? I mean, obviously they're going to be a part of your install depending on who your coach is. They may be the play caller. There's normally Nick Sirianni explained the way that he does his stuff with coordinators. Like those guys contribute. So before the game, they set up their first calls of the game, right? Then they set up situational stuff. Like these are the plays that we're going to pull from given the situation. And then those guys kind of contribute on the play call in terms of what you select and what you choose. So they have a pretty big impact on what's going on. I agree with that sentiment here, Jay Wavy. We still need a pass rusher. Yeah, I agree 1,000%, man. We do. You're right. Jose said, we need to know Howie's sentiment on Hurts. That's the decider on how we would attack free agency and the draft. Yeah, you're right. And that's the thing that no one can know. You know, that's the thing that nobody can know, to be honest with you. Lemon AT said, thoughts on Smoke Monday? I don't know, man. Jeffrey McIntosh said, let's be honest. We all knew Hurts had shortcomings, but what we realized that when the stage is large, he fell apart. I don't think it's necessarily fell apart, Jeffrey. You have to pay attention to what Nick Sirianni was saying. When Nick did his press conference following the game, he did give light to some things. The first thing he said, and I'm waiting on the All-22, Jeffrey, to really break down what was going on. He talked about how they didn't really get any rhythm until the 4th possession of the game. And then he went into to explain and talk about the first 3 third down plays. And he said those weren't really Jalen Hurts' fault. So obviously I'm going to want to go back through and take a look at those third down plays. I think one of them was the Goddard drops. I mean, that one's pretty easy to distinguish, not being anyone's fault there other than Goddard. But I want to see those other two plays and see, well, what are you alluding to? What are you alluding to in that situation? But outside of that, that conversation, Nick Sirianni was pretty critical of himself and said that, he's got to take some of the blame off of Hurts here because he didn't do a good enough job with alerts for Hurts versus pressure. He said that Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay had a pretty good feel for what the, audible was going to be versus pressure, and they were all over it. And he said, that's really a function of the coaching, and that's not the function of the quarterback. So I do think that there's some hot takes out there that I think you guys are getting ahead of yourself a little bit. Takeem the Dream said DJ Shark, another cheap option versus Allen Robinson and Mike Williams. Yeah, if Shark could stay healthy, he'd be a really good player, Takeem. It's his health, but he's a good player. He's better than what we have. There's no doubt about that. In terms of the second and third options, I should say. I like Alden Tate. DJ Shark is good. Yeah, I think a lot of us are in agreement with DJ Shark. Tim Etta said, I would get rid of a first this year for a first next year in case Jalen doesn't work, and then get a generational talent like Stroud or Young at quarterback. What do you think? I mean, yeah, I think that you should create assurances, Tim. I definitely think you should create assurances for yourself. In the NFL, even if a guy is playing well, you know how it is in the NFL, man. You're always one hit away, to be quite honest. But I also think it's smarter to build around the position groups right now, around quarterback. You need to build the roster around that position. Francis said, we need weapons. Yeah, we do. I don't disagree at all. He's like, I'm talking about both sides of the ball. I saw a mock draft where Linderbaum was in the top 5. From the limited film I saw, he isn't worth that pick. Plus, centers typically go where running backs go. Yeah, Jalen, that's where I'm thinking too, which is I saw that as well. I'm thinking that he's going to beat the mark of the previous, few years, because you're right. They normally go 18 back is where they normally go. And it's really in the 20s is where they normally get picked. But guys are saying that Linderbaum's a little different. And that's cool. I mean, I haven't gotten far enough in his film yet, Jalen, to really weigh on and how much of a generational talent he is. I do see some similarities to Kelsey. I get it. I get the comp. It makes sense to me. But, yeah, you got a point, man. You got a point that top 5 seems a little drastic for Linderbaum. Francis said, we have one playmaker on D, that's Slay. We have one playmaker on offense. Hurts makes plays. I would say Devontae Smith is a playmaker. They just got to find a way of getting him the ball. And that's the other thing that Nick Sirianni said, which is, the lack of converting those early third downs took Devontae Smith out of the game. But then he prefaced that by saying, I wasn't good enough, though, because, I should have schemed things earlier in the possessions for Devontae Smith to be involved. So, I mean, I think Devontae Smith is a playmaker. I just think that they got to get better at getting him the football. Dante said, I don't see us getting a linebacker in the first round with knowing Howie, center or guard, corner, and defensive end. You got history on your side, Dante, so it's hard to argue with you on that one. You kind of have, the benefit of history being on your side. It's been since, 1979? Jalen said, are there any running backs in the draft that are difference makers? I was talking to someone earlier today, and there's the young man it's coming out of Texas A&M. He's a big back, Jalen. He's like 6'1", 225. He's a thumper. He's been getting a lot of snaps since his freshman year. That can be a positive or a negative, depending on how you look at it. But I definitely think he gives you that Jordan Howard element, but he's a slightly more explosive than Jordan Howard. If that guy is there in the mid-rounds of this draft, 3rd, 4th round, I'd be interested. I would be very, very interested in picking up that player, to be quite honest. But I can't say who will or won't be available in what rounds because it's still very early on, and none of that stuff has been decided yet, to be quite honest. What are our real cap numbers for the next 2 years? For this year in particular, once you subtract your rookie draft pool, you're at about probably anywhere between $5 to $7 million once you take the rookie pool out. The thing is we know they're going to make moves, Jalen. So I'm going to say it'll end somewhere between $25 and $30 million of available cap space, potentially higher, depending on who gets restructured, who gets cut, all that kind of stuff. But those are moves you can't see yet, right? I think a lot of people are making a mistake of thinking that the figures that are being reported are not accounting for the money we're going to roll over from this season into next season, and they are. Unfortunately, they are. When you look at the cap tables that's on Spotrac, you can see that they rolled it over into those figures, and that unfortunately, because we've already done a lot of the re-signings with Goddard, Maddox, and those guys, Sweat, that took some of our cap space away. Marcus Williams. Jeffrey said, Jalen Reagor, wow, this sad. He didn't do anything right, but it was a team loss all around. It was a team loss. I mean, I'll give him that, but he was part of that team and maybe the worst of the team in that game. Freestyle said, what up, Gate? Is a 3-curl route the same as a comeback route? So comebacks and curls, just you're leaning one way versus the other. So, when you're curling, you're normally coming inside. When you're coming back, you're normally going outside normally. So it's just a different direction. But yeah, they're essentially the same thing. I like Zimmer on a 1-year rental to help Nick. It worked with Doug. Takeem said safety Jordan Whitehead, Tampa Bay Bucks, is the best free agent safety to replace Rodney McLeod, in my opinion. I'd throw big money at Whitehead and have Epps and a draft pick compete for the other safety spot. I don't hate it. I mean, we got to see where our cap space is going to be, though, Takeem. I think that's the problem. I do agree that Jordan Whitehead, number one, he's better than McLeod. There's no doubt about that, especially at this point. And we need difference makers in that backfield at safety. We do. I like Epps' athleticism. I thought Epps showed a lot this season. I thought that Epps might have been one of the better stories. I thought Milton Williams during the second half of the season really came around. I thought Epps, really took some steps forward for the defense. I think Slay had a really big comeback year, although he's older, so it's a little hard. Avonte Maddox definitely became a really good story for the defense. Javon Hargrave looks like if you can get another guy on that defensive line to stop teams from just easily double teaming him, he could be a complete, wrecking ball in terms of pass rush ability. And Milton Williams is definitely showing you that he's got versatility as a pass rusher. What's up, Sam? He said Fangio typically favors a 34 front. Would you be okay with that move? I would be perfectly fine with it. I don't know how the other guys would feel. Obviously, you got to look at the fact that Javon Hargrave came out of Pittsburgh's 34 system where he was playing nose, and he was 2-gapping. And he was very productive in that one, but he wanted to definitely get to a 1-gap system. Fletch is probably not going to want that, to be honest. Milton Williams would make a perfect 5 technique in a 34 front. He'd be a really good 5 technique in that 34 front or a 4-eye, depending if they run eagle, whatever they do. So, I mean, I definitely think that there are pieces here. Still need more, though. I think, though, if you go to a 34 front, I don't know how guys like, when you look at a guy like Josh Sweat, I'm not too sure how Josh Sweat would fit. Jalen said, from a culture standpoint, what do you think is more important, Hurts and his leadership as the quarterback, or the head coach who is a bit quirky, and shows he really cares? I think it's the quarterback from the culture standpoint. I mean, they both have very important roles to play. I think internally, probably the head coach, but I think externally, in terms of attracting people to come to your organization and all that kind of stuff, Jalen, I think the quarterback is probably a little bit more important in that aspect of things. They both have very vital roles. Dante said, Jalen Hurts walks into your camp tomorrow. What will you work with him on? First, second, third, and fourth? The primary thing that Hurts has to work on is throwing the ball with anticipation. He's got to get – we just talked about this, about what a progression read is and how it's executed, right? How you get into a rhythm step. He's got to learn how to read the defense and then read from that, basically, okay, once I hit this rhythm step, third step, fifth step, whatever it is, 3-step drop, 5-step drop, I've got to throw this ball with anticipation. Or I got to know when the defensive back or the coverage has leverage on the player, and now I'm going to have to hitch up and go to my next read. I do think that there were definitely elements of the season to where Jalen Hurts got a lot better at hitching up and getting to the second read, moving the pocket, sliding the pocket, not just moving from it quickly, not just leaving it, escaping it quickly. I think he got better as the season went on. But I definitely still think that there's an element of the rhythm step that's not there, that he's got to prove upon. He's not throwing the ball with anticipation, and that's a big problem. Past that, you got to look at that deep ball, man. The throwing mechanics on that deep ball are really, really, bad, to be quite honest. He's what I would call a short strider. So if you look at guys like Carson Wentz, and you look at guys like Josh Allen, they were long striders. So it basically means that their feet would get really far apart and it would mess with their deep ball and they would be off target, right? Well, Jalen's kind of the opposite of that, to where he's a short strider. And when you short strider, you get toesy. What ends up happening basically is that it takes a little off your football and you can hang the ball. You're just not getting your hips through the throw is what's happening. So you're not putting out the best product on the field. Add to that, he's got an elongated delivery. I wouldn't overdo the elongated delivery. I think that's kind of a thing you get to last, just because, number one, you're not going to make like super large changes to a delivery. It takes many, many years to do that. And look, there have been guys who have changed their delivery. The most notable guy to change his delivery is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers had a really high ball carriage when he came out of college. And a lot of dudes did not like that ball carriage, and they dropped him in the draft because of that ball carriage. He changed that. So you can mess with things like that, but it takes time. That's not going to happen within 16 games. He's not going to be a completely different guy in terms of that. That takes years of kind of getting into it, right? Because what we're talking about is I can teach you everything in the world, right? But when the lights go on and a defense is barreling down on you and you're about to get hit, it's instinct. It's instinct. And if you can't build the instinct to change the habit, it's all for nothing. And I think that kind of gets left out of the conversation a little bit. In terms of the third thing he's doing, I do think that you have to bring him along a little bit with learning how to do some things pre-snap in terms of coverage, right? So I'm talking about more of coverage reads, being able to depend upon him to read leverages of defenders in the coverage and attack it. That would be the third thing you do, but I think that that's a much bigger task. I would put that kind of third. Past that, guys, I mean, fourth thing, he's already kind of accomplished a lot of it, right? Before he had a really bad problem staying on schedule with the offense. You still keep working on it. You don't just let that one slide, because he can fall right back into bad habits with that. But, I mean, he's been so much better at playing on time with the offense. That's pretty much it, man. I mean, that's really what I would work with him on. Michael said, with Isaac more than likely coming back and Brooks likely leaving, who do you think plays right guard going forward? I think you're going to have a competition between Isaac Seumalo and probably Jack Driscoll is probably what I would see. Nate Herbig might get some opportunities to get into that mix, but I doubt it, to be honest. I think he's going to be more of your backup center guard. Tommy said, do you think winning 9 games this year will hurt us in the future since we lost our chance for a higher draft pick? No, because, I mean, we have plenty of ammo if we really wanted to get high in this draft to take a guy. So I don't think it necessarily hurts us. But it might overinflate us into thinking maybe we're better than what we are in terms of the actual talent on the roster, because we're going to play a second place schedule next year, which, those dudes might not finish second place by the end of the season. So you can get lucky with circumstance sometimes. But in theory, your schedule is going to be harder next season. You're not playing a last place schedule. Eric Monroe said, hey, Coach, how come we never feed Devontae Smith like other teams feed their stars? I kind of got into that earlier. Nick talked about that's something that has to change during the offseason. They've got to get better at finding opportunities to get the ball to Devontae Smith. Jalen said, it is crazy. You say that Goddard is a top 5 to 7 tight end, and where do you think he falls? Is it crazy? Oh, yo. My bad, Jalen. I completely misread that. To say that Goddard is a top 5 to 7 tight end, and where do you think he falls? That's a tough one, man. I do think he is top 5. I think he's right in that 5th spot to me, is where I would put him. I would not elevate him above Mark Andrews right now. I think Mark Andrews is just a far better receiving option, right? I still think that, even though he probably had a better season overall than Kelsey's a better player. Kelsey's a better player. I think he's a far better receiver. I think he's a way better receiver than what they got out there in San Francisco, to be quite honest. But I think he's a more complete tight end. So, you know what I mean? And then Darren Waller is he's such a versatile receiving, tight end. I'd have to put Darren Waller, what he can do offensively, above Goddard. And then I would put Goddard there because Goddard's kind of in that mix of being good at both things, but he's got a lot to improve upon. He's gotten better in his route running, to be honest, Jalen. But the whole concentration drop things where he's looking upfield to try to make a play before he catches the football. He's got to get better at that, man. Man, we have a running back for a quarterback. Nah, I think it's an oversimplification, Terrell, to be honest. I don't think that's true. Goddard is definitely top 5. Yeah, I would have him right at 5, sure enough. This is where I would have him. I would have those other guys above him. And, I do think that him and Mark Andrews are really close to each other in terms of what they can do for an offense. But Mark Andrews just had a crazy productive season. So it's kind of hard to put him above Mark Andrews right now. NFC East B said, if Wilson is available, the Eagles should go get him. But for what price? Like, I agree that Wilson is a far better player. No, I'm not going to push back on the NFC East Beast. Number one, I'm an NC State guy. So I got love for Russ. But in saying that, like, what's the cost? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the cost to go get that guy? Because if it's 3 first-round picks, man, I don't want it. It's too expensive, in my opinion. And then you got to factor in the contract, NFC East Beast. Like, we'd have to look at the contract, look at what we have to give up to go get that guy. And then on top of that, do you have any money left to even build the roster around him to be good enough to compete? You know what I mean? To me, NFC East Beast, I think that's a move you make if you were closer to really competing for a Super Bowl. And then that's the missing link. You go get Russell Wilson. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Russ would want to come here, to be honest. Cornelius said, do you think Hurts can become a great quarterback? Sure. I mean, can he become a great quarterback? Sure. Is it a layup? Can I sit here and tell you definitively that's going to happen? No, I can't. He's got some very clear things he's got to work on. The deep ball accuracy stuff, yes. If he starts hitting on those plays, then it can become special in terms of what he can do down the field. But I still think that the larger issue at hand here is him reaching that rhythm step and throwing the ball with anticipation. That is the larger issue with Jalen Hurts right now, in my opinion. He's got to get better at making, he's definitely a progression read quarterback in this point in his career. He's got to get far better at when he hits that rhythm step, whether it's 3 steps, 5 steps, whatever it is. Once he hits that rhythm step, he's got to know what the leverage is of that corner, what the leverage is of that coverage, and he's got to anticipate things and throw the ball to his receivers. That's a big problem inside the offense right now. And if he can't clean that up, it's going to be really hard as a passing offense to gain a lot of momentum, to be honest. Shonuff said Spiller, big running back out of – yeah. Thank you, Shonuff, exactly. So you guys talking about Kenneth Walker. Need to draft Rambo from Miami. After one season, where does Devontae Smith stack up against the rest of the NFL? This isn't slander. I have him 18 to 25. I also have questions on how much better he can be because he is so polished. I think it's a fair placement, Jalen. To be honest, I think 18 to 25 is a fair placement. I think he has the potential to be one of the 10 to 15 best receivers in the league. Hard to say completely because, everything is in unison, Jalen. Better quarterback play from Jalen Hurts probably leads to more production for Devontae Smith, right? All those things are true. There are limitations to his game in terms of you're looking at the complete guy as a complete receiver. He's, when we run these things, you almost have to take him off the field on blocking assignments. He's a lot of effort. I love the kid's effort. He's all effort. But, man, he gets eaten up on these blocking assignments, to be quite honest. Like, he definitely gets eaten up on them. Freestyle said Howie will probably draft another offensive lineman in the first round. I think that's very possible. I think it's very possible, Freestyle. Isaiah Spiller is the Texas A&M. Yes. Thank you, guys. Appreciate that. Yes. Taking Rager over Justin Jefferson. Sorry, the JJ thing can confuse people. My bad, man. Justin Jefferson will hurt the Eagles for years to come. I don't think so. Eagles made the playoffs. The Vikings are still seeking it. I don't think receiver is as important as people think, to be honest, Tommy. I disagree with that take. Lit City, Lambo. What's good, buddy? He said, Boy Mafi from Arizona could be a good defensive end to draft. I haven't seen any film of him, man. I'll have to take a look at film on him. He said Walker from Michigan State is a beast at running back. What's up, Liquid? How you doing, buddy? He said, I hope the Eagles explore all options to replace Jalen Hurts and Rager. Explore the options are definitely happening, Liquid. I can tell you that. They're going to explore options. I don't know anything will come from it, though. Treehouse ASMR said, the entire team loves Jalen Hurts. The coaching staff will lose the locker room by moving on from Hurts. He played well this season. Hurts has earned another season here. You're leading into the whole gladiator thing where they were sitting down eating and he was afraid they poisoned his food, and the guy tells him, you have a good name, they have to kill your name first. That's kind of your take on it. Showing up 215 said safety Bates from the Bengals is going to be a free agent. I would definitely consider. Treehouse ASMR, he earned another season because we are forced. There are no other options unless Wilson wants to come here. Or if, Wilson wants to come here, if, Watson clears the legal hurdles, which I don't think is going to happen, guys. I really don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Takeem said, pretty sure the Bengals are going to lock Bates up with big money. I can't see them letting him go. Lit City said, give Jalen another year, address the other issues on the team first. Show enough was like, I agree. Don't really see them letting him walk. Yeah, I mean, he's a good player. Show enough, I think you're hitting the nail on the head in terms of that's the type of player you want. It's just a matter of, can we get any of these guys to become available to actually be able to steal somebody? James said, who are your top 3 safeties in this draft? Oof. That is tough to say, my guy. Let me take a look and see how I would rate some of these guys in terms of where I think their value stands. I think the biggest problem we're going to have here is that outside of the kid from Notre Dame, I don't think any of these guys are straight impact players. I think that's your bigger problem. So let me see who has declared for the draft, because that's the biggest issue here. Is I got to make sure that they actually declare that they're underclassmen, and then see from there. Because when you look at big boards, sometimes they have guys on there who have not declared for the draft yet, and that can be confusing. Remember Olavier last year, where he was really high on all these big boards, but he hadn't declared for the draft. So, you know what I mean? Like, I almost broke down video on him, and then I realized he hadn't declared for the draft. I was like, man, they kind of messed me up with that one. Let me take a look real quick, guys. So let's see who's actually declared and then who is probably the better players out of that group. All right, so safeties. Jordan Battle, who I do like Jordan Battle. Jaquan Brisker is a good one. That's the kid from Penn State, I believe. Kyle Hamilton is clearly the best of them. So out of the list of guys that I know for a fact have declared for the draft, and mind you, there's going to be more than this. This is just who we know for a fact is declared. You have Jordan Battle, Bubba Bolden, Jaquan Brisker, Yusuf Corker, Kyle Hamilton, Tyke Smith, and Trace Sterling. I would say probably Kyle Hamilton would be my one. The Battle and Brisker argument is pretty complex. I'm going to say, and this might change, guys, it's very preliminary. I'm going to say Battle will probably be my 2 and Brisker will probably be my 3 among this group. But I need to get into the film deeper to really stamp something, James. You get what I'm saying? Like, you need film to like really go out on a limb and say that you believe in this guy over that guy. Lit City Lambo said, could Isaac be Kelsey's replacement at center? Could be. He could be. That's how they envisioned him originally. RGR, what's up, buddy? He said, I like Hurts, but it seems like he gets shook in bigger games. What do you think? I think it's more complex. Like, we talked about this a little earlier, RGR, but, Sirianni kind of went into an explanation to say, the big problem with the offense was we didn't really get any momentum offensively until the 4th possession. And then he kind of talked about the fact that the first 3 third downs in the game weren't really Hurts' fault. Obviously one of them, I believe, was the drop that Goddard had. So, I mean, clearly that's not Hurts' fault, but I'm curious of what he means on those other two third downs. I'm going to go take a look at that sometime this week and really see what happened there. Some of the other things he said there that I think should be considered into an evaluation like this is that he talked about he didn't put Jalen Hurts in a good situation versus pressure. And that's why Jalen Hurts was surprisingly bad versus pressure in this game, because Jalen Hurts was the 5th rated quarterback versus pressure of the season. He'd been really good at beating pressure this year. And he was not good in that Tampa Bay game. And Sirianni shedded a little light on that. He said, look, I'm supposed to be building alerts in as the coach to give him an audible to get into. And the things that I put forth for him to utilize weren't good enough. And Todd Bowles was one step ahead of me, and he shut it down. So he kind of took the onus on himself to say there really wasn't Jalen Hurts. It was really a failure on the coaching staff, to be quite honest. Now, I will say RGR, he doesn't get a pass for some of the turnover-worthy passes he threw and some of the turnovers he threw. That he was playing, a little hurried. I mean, there's no doubt. I think that's what you're getting into about what you mean by being shook, that he seemed to play hurried in that game when it was unnecessary at times. Jose said, let's say Hurts fixes his issues. What player would you compare him to? Would he be like Josh Allen? No, I'm not going to say Josh Allen. I think the trajectory, the arc of the players is similar in Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, not the skill set. They're both neither one of these guys are Lamar Jackson in terms of their athletic ability as runners, but they're both really good runners. They're very athletic dudes, and they're strong physical guys that will straight hit defenders. They'll run right into them. They're not afraid of it. With that said, I think the similarities in their early career struggles are similar, to where both of them had really horrible deep balls. Different reasons for it. Pause. That sounded really weird. Pause. But with that said, Josh Allen was a long strider. Jalen Hurts is a short strider. Both of them have these issues, though, that affect their deep ball ability, their ability to throw the ball over 20 yards. Josh Allen cleaned it up in his third year. But I'll be honest with you. I remember what Bills fans were saying about Josh Allen. And they were ready to give up on that dude, to be quite honest. He didn't see coverage very well. Josh Allen really struggled to see coverage. And to be honest with you, he was worse versus pressure in his second year than he was his first year. So his sophomore year versus pressure, his numbers were actually worse than his rookie season. Jalen Hurts made a drastic step forward in terms of that aspect of things. But Josh Allen has a different arm. It's a completely different arm level. Jalen Hurts doesn't have a weak arm. It's more fundamentals of how you release the ball. It's his release that's causing the issues. It's not arm strength. But he's not in the same arm strength category as Josh Allen. Josh Allen's just like on a completely different planet when it comes to that. Richie said, hey, Gate City, question. If the Eagles offensive staff looks over the game film for the entire year, is it common to see players quitting or getting half effort on plays? If not, how is that corrected? Good question, Richie. I think it's complex. So what we perceive is like, I'm going to talk about how we perceive things, Richie, right? Like when we perceive something to be half effort, a lot of times it's not necessarily half effort. It's the way that the play structure is. The player believes that in past plays, you are removed at this point from a progression, right? You probably get who I'm talking about here, which is Quez Watkins in this last game, to where Quez he throttled it down, and then Jalen threw the ball, and he's like, oh, crap, I got to get back up to speed. I think it's complex, right? I don't think he's giving up per se, but he's just saying normally at this point in the play, I'm removed from the progression. So it looks really bad. So they'll probably will work on these younger guys to say you cannot remove yourself from a play, even if you know normally at this time the ball's not coming to you. You still got to play like it is. You still have to play like it might come back to you. Or you should at least be looking at your quarterback to see where he is. So that way maybe you need to be into a scramble drill situation. So I definitely think you could see things like that happen from a postseason assessment of what's going on in your offense. We like getting the ball to Smitty because Steichen is trash. I don't think Steichen is trash, but I do think he's conservative, sure enough. I do think that Steichen is a very conservative guy, but I will say this. Some of the blame coming down on Steichen is not correct. Steichen doesn't design our RPO stuff. That's Kevin Patullo, to be honest. I have heard that show enough, so I know that it's not like you're saying that. It's you heard somebody say that. You're just reporting what someone who should know this is telling you. But truth be told, Patullo is the guy who handles RPOs. So those tunnel screen stuff, that's not Steichen. That's Patullo. Lit City Lambo said, we need a new defensive coordinator. I agree. I don't know if we need a new one. I think, I think we need upgrades from whatever's there. I mean, he's a little conservative for my liking personally. But yeah, I mean, I get the frustration, guys. I understand the frustration. Like I say, I always try to caution people that Sean McDermott wasn't ready that first year, but he was a good coach. And we probably should have stuck it out with Sean McDermott. I'm not saying that this situation is going to be Sean McDermott-like, but he's regarded the same way that Sean McDermott was regarded around the league. Chaos to Filthy. What's up, buddy? He said Huntley should have gotten the nod being a returner. He said, that means Goddard is 6 because you forgot Gronk. Now, I would put Goddard over Gronk at this point, Jalen. Personally, I'd still put Goddard over Gronk. I think Goddard's the better player right now. Gronkowski might be the better nuanced player, but to be fair, Goddard has outproduced him. And I do think that Goddard's a better, even though Gronk's not, it's not like Gronk can't block. I think Goddard's the better blocker out of the two. Michael said, any idea why they stopped putting Boston at returner? That's one of his strong suits. Hopefully him or Gainwell start there going forward. Good question. I really don't know. Maybe they wanted more explosion out of the kick return game, so they tried to go with more explosive playmakers. It didn't work out, though, did it, Michael? To be fair, right? Jonathan Meek said Goddard is top 5 in dropping open passes. Yeah, there's an element of that where you're being truthful, Jonathan. He's got to get better at making sure he secures the ball before he tries to turn upfield and make a play. 2-1s, Dillard and Hurts for Wilson. I don't know if it'll get it done, man. You also got to consider, man, look, NFC's beast. I'm gonna say I don't agree with that one just because you don't go get Russell Wilson unless you have the roster around to compete. It's just not the type of quarterback you go get without having the roster to compete. I don't know if that would entice him. I think from Seattle's front office, you might be onto something saying 2-1s and Dillard plus Hurts, but I don't know that Russ is going to improve that trade. I don't know that Russ is going to want to come here. I don't think your value is off. I just don't think that the player is going to want the destination. Shonuff said, not interested in trading for a veteran quarterback like the Bills, Bengals, and Pats. I want to find our guy. Dante said, the one thing that scares me with Hurts and Nick is Devontae and Quez in Dallas. Quez becoming in Scribble in 800 yards, Dallas 1,000, Smith 1,500. Yeah, I mean, the pieces are there. Like, a lot of people don't realize how productive of a season that Quez Watkins had. Like, the dude had over 500 yards receiving. We had 2 receivers over 500 yards. It's been a long time since we had 1 receiver over 500 yards. I mean, so in that perspective of things, we had a really productive season from that. But I do agree that overall, the talent level still has to get better. It definitely has to get better. Kelsey, Kittles, Gronk, Andrews, Waller, Knox, and Goddard. I wouldn't put Knox above Goddard, to be honest. I wouldn't put Gronk either, Richie. But I understand that when you're dealing with this level of player, it's very subjective to how you grade them. They're all 7 of those dudes are really good. Shonuff said Goddard over Knox. Roseman loves Russell Wilson. If we give up a first round and a second round, I would be okay with that. Yeah, but I don't know that love is reciprocated. Philly halftime, to be honest. I'm not trying to be a Hurts stan or anything like that. I'm just being honest. I don't think that Russ wants to come here. TJ Hawkinson or Goddard? Goddard's the better player. TJ Hawkinson's definitely on the upcome. He definitely showed that if you get him into a system where a quarterback's going to work and try to get the ball into the tight end, he could do some stuff, but I'd still put Goddard over Hawkinson. Chaos the Filthy said, I'm upset we didn't play better, but we had a great season and should be better next year. I give Hurts another year, and I trade back in the draft to get more picks for 2023. I mean, my perspective on it, guys, and mind you, I don't know what the front office is going to do. I cannot tell you what the front office is going to do. They're unpredictable when it comes to the quarterback. We all know that. They're going to explore options, in my opinion. They're definitely going to explore the top options. They were already in on Watson last year. We know that. They're going to explore the options to see if they're there. My hunch is that the options won't be there, right? That's what my hunch is. But we'll see, guys. I mean, like I said, I'm never going to go out there and say 100% certainty anything about the front office because it's unpredictable with this position in particular. Goddard, Hawkinson's nice stuff. Yeah, I agree, showing up. Hawkinson's getting better. He had a really good year. What's up, Cyclone TV? How you doing, buddy? You say, hey, Gates, was the back shoulder throw to Greg Ward an anticipation throw? No, I wouldn't call that anticipation because he broke the pocket to get there. I I would also argue that he located the ball in exactly the wrong place, to be quite honest, Taekwondo TV. Although it was a heck of a play by Dallas Goedert, by Greg Ward Jr., the ball placement was all wrong from the leverage of the quarterback. That's not where you throw back shoulder. He should have pushed that one towards the pylon. Ultimately, though, he put the ball in a really good spot. The defender couldn't get around to the football. It was a good play on the ball. Greg Ward Jr. made a heck of a play. Yeah. What's up, Messiah? How you doing, man? A lot of conversation, man. We started off talking about kind of like what it means to be a progression reader versus a coverage reader. We talked about how those two things kind of get blended and married in the NFL to form a system for 95% of guys. And then the chat, we just kind of go everywhere. Let me get down to the super chat, guys. Sorry. Philly Fan D in the building with a $4.99 super chat. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. Appreciate the morning chat, Steve. Hey, I'm trying to do it for you guys as often as I can. I'm probably going to try to do a live call-in show, guys. Maybe Friday. Maybe Friday we'll do a live call-in show, guys, and I'll kind of let you guys take the conversation wherever you guys want to take the conversation. James said, O-line is first, but those wide receivers need help. Chase turned the Bengals into a force. That's true. And I really thought the Bengals made a mistake taking Chase, honestly. I thought their offensive line needed way more attention, but they were right. They were correct in what they did. I'm tired of the Justin Jefferson. Who would you rather have, Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, or Devontae? We get Jefferson and we don't get Devontae. That's true. Look, all three of those guys are good. They're good wide receivers. Devontae's a good wide receiver. Justin Jefferson's a very good wide receiver, and so is CeeDee Lamb. All three of them are good. If Jeff Stoutland is the O-line guru, why can he not work with Dillard and make him a right tackle candidate? I have concerns that Lane Johnson could be contemplating sitting out next season. I don't think Lane Johnson's going to sit out, to be honest, Richie. You got to understand with Dillard, he's never played it. He's never played right tackle before he got into the NFL, guys. He's always been a left tackle. High school career, college career, the whole 9 yards. I would have to have Jalen and other people who have played the offensive line explain to you the differences in the sets from left tackle to right tackle, because I'm out of my depth of range here, Richie, to be honest. I'm not an offensive line guy. But I definitely got a few guys on the channel who played it collegiately, and probably are better suited to explain that. Mad Hatter said, I want to draft George Pickens at wide receiver. Georgia in the second or third round would be a steal. I like him. I like George Pickens a lot, man. I hope he's right physically, Mad Hatter. But you're right. In terms of, like, if that dude didn't get injured, he was probably definitely a top 16 pick. He's going to be top half of probably the draft. Natiro, who do we know Hurts doesn't turn into? How do we know Hurts doesn't turn into Mariota? What's the right balance between being patient but also not waiting too long? It's an excellent question, Natiro, and it's not that easy. It's not that easy of a decision to make. I would say that you have to be honest. If you're a coaching staff and you're assessing the situation, and if you're a front office and you have your scouts assessing the situation, it's all about what you can definitively say about where improvements were or were not made, where progress has to be made. And then you judge how long of a process it's going to take. You're not going to have unilateral agreement among scouts. You're not going to have even, I would say that, I would dare to say you won't even necessarily have unilateral, agreement among your coaching staff, to be quite honest. I think there is a chance that some guys might feel differently. With that said, that's kind of how you handle it. And I know that I didn't give you a straightforward answer, but it's not an easy, straightforward thing to answer. Jalen said, is it actual to say going into the offseason, other than offensive line and tight end units, we don't have a solidified top 16 unit on this team? I'm putting this in the context of Cox is getting cut or traded. I think you could have a point. I do think the defensive line is maybe a little argumentative to say if it's a top 16 unit, but I do think that offensive line, and then with Goddard and the tight end grouping there with Stahl and those guys, probably arguably in that area. Still probably could use a number 2 tight end, because I think they envisioned Tyree Jackson being that secondary kind of receiving threat from the tight end group. But obviously the ACL injury is going to make things very complex for him. So you might have a point. Miguel said, hey, Gates, keep Jalen Hurts, get a pass rusher, linebacker, and maybe receiver, cornerbacks with these top 4 or 5 picks, basically. Philly Halftime said, we need at least 2 different ends, probably one in the draft and one in free agency. Definitely could use some depth along that defensive line. Jeremiah said, make sure y'all like this stream. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that, man. Richie MC said, Brooks' situation this year was very strange. Nick Siri would never talk about it in the press conference as if he was not allowed to discuss it. Eagles cannot have the same situation with Lane in 22. I don't think they will because I don't – it was a physical ailment with Brandon Brooks, Richie. So Smith from Georgia is going back to Georgia. Will you be mad to double dip and draft 2 defensive ends in back-to-back years? No, not really. Not really, just because of how important defensive line and offensive line are into winning football games. So, no, I really wouldn't, honestly. What's up, James Gatling? He said, hi, Coach. I love John Mechie, wide receiver from Alabama. He played with Slim Reaper. What do you think? He's explosive. He's probably not quite to Williamson's level of explosiveness. Williamson's like on a whole nother level in terms of that explosiveness, but good, steady guy. Mechie was either Mechie. I think it was Mechie was like surprisingly high in terms of the contested catch rate because he's not he's tall. He's like 6 foot, 6'1"-ish, but he wasn't like, I didn't expect him to be high in contested catch rates, and he was surprisingly. Which means he's got good concentration to go and snag footballs. Jeffrey said, okay, we have 2 receivers in Smith and Watkins. Is it possible that Rager becomes better next year? If not, do we draft a free agent? Is it possible, Jeffrey? Sure, anything's possible. Would I bank on it? And I think that's what you're getting to, right? Is would I bank on that development? Probably not. I'd make that young man earn his way back onto the roster. They're very unlikely to cut a first-round pick. They probably try to see if they can't find a way of exploring trade routes to make it look better than what it was. Like, we wouldn't have got this pick if it wasn't for putting Rager in the package. You know what I'm saying? They could try something like that. But to be honest with you, I would try to keep upgrading that position. And then simply put, I'd make him earn his way back on the field. He's going to have to earn it. What's up, Sar? He said, this is who Hurts is. His arm isn't elite. He's always late. He doesn't read the field right. It is what it is. Some of you guys are that's some pretty hot takes to make, man. I don't make those hot takes. I only judge what film says, not what other people who are interested in making hot takes say, man. Lit City Lambo said, should we add Melvin Gordon to the running back room? I mean, it's a tough one to say, like contract value, Lit City, you know what I'm saying? Things like that. I mean, is he a good player? Sure. But if you still got, a rookie contract, with a guy like Miles Sanders, probably not going to do it this year. But it really depends on how they structure the rest of the running back group. What's up, Lone Wolf? He said, Hurts just didn't look like a leader in that playoff game. But how are you judging that, man? Like, from the outside, how can you possibly judge that? You know what I mean? Like, come on. That's a bit of a hot take, man. Come on. Kelly Green _ K Mead said, and Todd Bowles. Yeah, Todd Bowles was a difference maker in that game. You said we gave up on Todd Bowles. Yeah, you got a point. We had an opportunity to hire him as a defensive coordinator. You're right. And to keep him, maintain him there. I really don't want Miles anymore. We need another Howard-type back. I believe better quarterback play will make Smitty better. I don't disagree with that take. I think you're right. Quez ended up with over 600 yards receiving. Yeah, so you got 2 guys over 500 yards. I mean, that's a vast improvement from where we've been. Wilson will be a bidding war. Eagles would have to offer Hurts, Dickerson, the 15th and 19th, a conditional 2 in 2023. That could be a first if conditions are met. Wilson's going to want a new contract too. Yeah, personally, Richie, I love Russell Wilson. I'm an NC State guy, but not for the. We're just not in that. We're not in that spot to compete. I don't know if you necessarily have to attach Lanning Dickerson. You could probably attach another guy like an Isaac Sayamalu. You can attach a guy who's decent. You're probably not going to get Dickerson, 2 first-rounders, and a conditional second for Russ. Russ doesn't have that kind of value. Dante said, to be fair to Rager, he does have punt returns back for a touchdown. I know people are mad, but I'm rooting for all Eagles, but never question the combine 40-yard dash. Never. What's up, Dante? Coming in with the $2 super chat. Sorry, I missed it, buddy. Leave a like and subscribe. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you guys. Joshua said they gave Rager too many chances like they gave Aguilar. Aguilar's been pretty good since he left town, Joshua, to be fair. Matt Hatter said, can we trade for Kyler Murray, Mac Jones, and David Carr? But they all crap the bed in their first playoff game, too. Vincent said, so I've sold myself on Eagles needing to take Drake London or Treylon Burks in the first round. They're both Mike Evans-like, and we'll be looking at them on other teams if we pass that with regret. Possibly, man. Possibly. Sexy Vegan coming in. What's going on, buddy? How you doing, man? He said, if we get rid of Hurts and draft a rookie quarterback, his arm is going to fall off by the end of the season because Howie and Laurie will definitely pressure Sirianni and is throwing the ball 60 times a game. I don't know if it'd be quite 60 times a game, but I get your point, man. I get your point. They're not going to look for a guy who's going to be a Mac Jones where you're going to have a run-center offense and then have Mac read the defense off of those things. I agree. You're far more likely to have a Kenny Pickett type, knowing the front office. Matt Hatter said, also, there is no quarterback in the draft better than Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. So we do not have many options. I'm going to hold off on saying that. I get what you're saying, Matt, and there's a part of me that kind of agrees with it. But until I can really evaluate and see, I'm going to leave some air of like, let me see the film before I jump on something like that. What up, 2020? How you doing, man? Shonuff said, I know this sounds crazy, but there's something NFL teams see in Gannon. In my opinion, one Gannon's biggest issue, there's no balance or situational thinking there. But if that changes, his defense could be, yeah. I see what you're saying, Shonuff. I mean, clearly there's a reason why the league likes the guy a lot. Richie said, if Ertz is done in Arizona, can he still be a starting tight end elsewhere? Eagles need to be concerned that Dallas might sign him. My guess, he's going to Seattle, possibly. He might also follow Doug wherever Doug ends up. John Mechie is my guy. He's a beat, but not scared of ACL injuries in my draft. Hopefully he falls to the second round. Yeah, he just suffered one recently too, didn't he? Would like a new defensive coordinator, though. If we do switch to a 34 scheme, there's going to be some guys left out because they don't fit. However, this should put Fletch back to defensive end where he earned his big contract. Melvin Gordon concerns in his ability to hold on to the ball at times. We're familiar with that. We've had those issues. What's up, Bobby? Bobby said, I think Sanders is gone either by trade this season or walks in free agency after this season. No way Howie pays him a huge contract. Probably depends upon what the value his agent and him are seeking. You know, I do think there's an element to where you're right, Bobby. There's a number they're not going to go to. When I said Hurts didn't look like a leader, he was dejected, never was on the sideline hyping up the offense or anything. But that's not his personality, Lone Wolf. He's not a hype guy. That's never been what he is. Aguilar could get separation, was agile. Rager can't. Rager's athletic as heck, but you're right. He can't separate off the release. You're right. I mean, there's an element of that that's very much true. Stay away from USC receivers, please. I mean, Michael Pittman Jr. is doing pretty good. Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, Vincent came in. Michael Pittman and Amon-Ra St. Brown, both recent USC receivers who are good. Yeah, I mean, I think you got to be careful with the Pac-12, Matt Hatter. I get your point. The Pac-12's corners can mislead you and make you think that guys are better than they are, but USC in particular has produced decent wide receivers. Richie said, Rager, the winds were bad. He probably should have let the ball bounce. However, he thought that his skills would have taken over, and he just did not anticipate Josiah Scott whiffing on Scotty Miller. Hurts proved he'll never be able to throw the ball. I really don't Want to see him start next year, and I hope we sign Devontae Adams or Max Crosby. Let me ask you a question. If you start over and you don't have Jalen Hurts, why in the world would Devontae Adams come here? For the uncertainty at quarterback and the uncertainty of your front office. Like, those two things don't coincide with me. And I disagree, Jake. I'm not saying that Hurts will ever get there, but I can give you a real life example of a guy that had poor, he had a poor throwing platform. He couldn't read coverage, and it just clicked this third year. Once he got X amount of starts and got more familiar with scheme, he started working with Palmer out in LA to start working on his stride. He got better, and it's Josh Allen, man. Josh Allen was worse than Jalen Hurts his first 2 years in the league, to be honest. So, I mean, there are examples of dudes doing this, and if Buffalo had given up on Josh Allen and went back into the draft or traded for somebody, where would they be? I think you have to be careful with these type of things, guys. Sexy Vegan said Howie is still waiting for that JJ Arcega-Whiteside breakout season. He's been waiting for a long time. Vincent said we could use one of these big running backs in the draft like Bryce Hall, Spiller, dude from UCLA if we want to keep being a run team. Yeah, if you want to contact balance back, I agree. If Sanders leaves for some reason, I think Howard will go too. I like Gainwell and Huntley. I'd rather get a young running back and a power back. What's up, Archer? You say, even if you don't think Hurts played well this season, there's no quarterback in this draft that has a better tangibles and leadership qualities than Hurts. My guy, Michael. Sorry, Michael. I went to go click your comment, bro, and it pulled me down. Michael came in and said, I think we need to draft a reliable big back to pair with whoever is left out of Miles, Boston, and Kenny. Howard is good, but states. Yeah, Michael. I'm not sold on the fact that he might not have been injured still. I still think he had that lingering injury with the stinger. I think that's why they didn't give him the ball. I think that's what happened, to be honest. I don't know it to be factual, but it's what it seems like to me. Richie MC said, would it make sense for a Rager for a N'Keal Harry trade? Both wide receivers are considered bust and go until their third year. I think I posed that question sometime last week, Richie, and I got killed for that one. Vincent said a lot of people don't realize how bad Josh Allen was his first 2 years. Like the patience Buffalo showed was laughed at. Exactly. Vincent, a lot of people don't realize how bad he was at reading coverage in particular, how bad he was against the blitz. He was horrible. Shonoff said, I don't think we should give Hurts another year. I think it should only take 2 quarters of the 2022 season to figure Hurts out. Have to hear that Hurts is working with some quarterback guru for me to, another. But they do. Shonoff, they always work with quarterback coaches in the offseason. From my understanding, Shonoff is that he works with Avery. Quincy Avery, I think is his name. He works with a lot of guys, man. He works with a lot of these mobile quarterbacks that are coming out of the draft that he's trying to get them to use their athleticism, but also play within the structure of an offense. That's kind of what he does. But, he's also got a personal relationship with Brian Johnson, and perhaps Brian Johnson has relationships with, private quarterback coaches and might lead Jalen somewhere. I mean, hard to say, man. Hard to say. Ted Nicholas said, build the defense. Worst case scenario, the stash takes over. I would just let them two compete personally, Ted, is what I would do. I'd go into the offseason saying, you know what? We got good enough guys to compete with. I don't know if either one of them are franchise quarterbacks that you have for 10 or 12 years. I don't think that anyone can be really confident projecting either dude to be that guy. But I do think you got at least competent play from these two guys. And I think you just let them compete. And whoever you think gives you the better chance at winning should be your starter. I think it's what they should do. I don't know that's what they're going to do, but you know what I'm saying. Sanders only fumbled once this year and had a 77% catch percentage, ran for 750 yards and 5.5 yards per carry. He had a good season. He did. It's just the injuries again, Mad Hatter. My biggest concern with Sanders is the injuries. It's the health and duration. It's funny, showing enough. You said, Coach Hurts, Gate City. Hey, look, man. He's going to get it. He's going to get involved with a guy that's really good, showing up. All these dudes that are quarterback coaches that do private coaching, they're good, man. They're really good at what they do. None of these dudes are trash. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a matter of, like I said, in my opinion, showing off, the biggest distinguishing mark is can you get a guy's internal clock when the chips are on, the chips are down, and the pressure's in your face? Does your instinct take over, and can you change the behavior and the habits? And that only happens through crazy amounts of reps in that situation to correct the behavior. To be honest, you get what I'm saying? Showing off, like, that's what has to happen there. James J 30T said, Gate City Sports Talk, Hurts has done enough to earn one more year at quarterback. Use the draft and free agent to improve the team, especially defense, and see if Hurts does not show improvement, then seek a quarterback in 23 if it doesn't happen. I like the running back from Alabama, Robinson, and Christian Harris. I like Christian Harris a lot, actually. Jake said, I feel if Hurts starts, Devontae won't come. He'll never get the ball. But if Minshew starts or another veteran, he would. And the difference was Josh had the arm talent. Hurts doesn't. I think you're overestimating arm talent, Jake. And I think you're underestimating how good Hurts' arm actually is. Hurts has plenty of arm talent. You're wrong in that assumption. You don't know the position well enough. Hurts has plenty of arm strength. That's not the problem at all. He's a little flawed mechanically, but so is Josh, to be honest. You're wrong, man. It's really an issue of fixing his base, getting him to throw from a more proper base, and then throwing the ball with anticipation. That's really the issue at hand. Ted said, you can't pass with leadership. You need brains and mechanics. Hurts is a slow learner, 6 years of football, college, and pro. I would challenge that a little bit, Ted. I don't think he's a slow learner. I don't think he was ever put in systems to where he had to learn this until he got to Oklahoma. And he called Nick Saban out on that. He likes Nick Saban a lot. And you can hear Nick Saban in his responses to reporters. But he did call him out a little bit about the fact that they didn't really do the things that Oklahoma was doing with quarterbacks at Alabama in terms of bringing them along. But to be fair to Alabama, before Jalen Hurts got there, they really didn't have those type of quarterbacks. You know what I'm saying? They were really playing some kind of lower tier dudes at quarterback. Jalen Hurts was really the first big one to come there. And then after that, they started getting these bigger name quarterbacks. And, that you see from Hurts to Tua, to Mac, all these dudes, now they got Bryce. Like, you see what happened. Jake Gets Cake said, and he can't read a defense to save his life. His dad was a coach. He's been playing football his whole life. He's playing the wrong position. No, he's not, man. He's really not. And to be fair, Jake, your points don't discount what I just said. Josh Allen was worse at reading defenses than Jalen Hurts his first 2 years in the league. Buffalo, you can go back and look at Buffalo, and you can go back and listen to their commentary. They were winning in spite of Josh Allen. But they held steady to believe that Josh Allen could get there. I also think we need more positions of need, like linebacker, safety, and edge wide receivers. We need more help in that area than quarterback. I agree. Shono said, agree, Gay City, let them compete. Even if Hurts should know, Rents do. What's up, Philly Mike? How you doing, buddy? So, Gate, you got to break down 22 of Josh Allen early. That probably would be I think that would be a big help for people because I think people don't understand how bad Josh Allen was early on in his career. Richie said, do you see any of Sirianni's staff being poached by other teams? If not, what does that say about the quality of coaching there at each position? I don't think it says much about the quality of coaching. I don't think that outside of, I think the two you got to watch out for defensively. Denard Wilson and our secondary coach, I think, is kind of the name that's being set around the league. And then, obviously Jonathan Gannon. On the offensive side of things, you got a very young coaching staff. And I think they did that on purpose. So it's hard to say that, guys. Vincent said Hurts does work with Quincy Avery, same quarterback guru who coached Dak and Deshaun. Also, Hurts will be working with his wide receivers and Goddard all off-season building chemistry. Jonathan Meek said, if you don't think Hurts had an arm, Minshew is dinking donuts. Yeah, exactly, Jonathan. That is true. I'm not trying to take shots at Minshew, but Minshew's arm is far weaker. He's much better at reading coverage, though. Ted said Minshew can read defenses and go through all progressions. He can. That part I agree with you on. Sharif said Stoutland told Mulata he needed 10,000 kicks to get in perfect. That's a good analogy all around. Shonoff said, yeah, I don't know why people question Hurts' arm. He can throw the dang ball. Sorry, I almost read it, man. He just struggles with who to throw it to in a timely manner. But Hurts' arm is fine. He has a heck of a bullet pass arm. Yeah, I agree. It's not an arm strength issue with Jalen. It's like I said, guys, it has a lot to do with where he hits the rhythm step and understanding coverage to know when the ball has to be out with anticipation. It's in the complexities of being a progression read quarterback. He's got to get better at that. I don't understand the comments fans make. They say Hurts has a weak arm, and their answer is Minshew, who has a lesser arm. Yeah, exactly. Christian said, sign a 6'6", strong arm, 26-year-old restricted free agent, 2,400 yards per game. Crap team, Mike White. Nah, Mike White was hard after that one game, man. He was horrible after that one game. I would avoid Mike White. I mean, if you're bringing him in as a backup, Christian, that'd be one thing. I think he's perfectly respectable as a backup because backups aren't supposed to be franchise quarterbacks. But I wouldn't bring him in with the intention that that guy's going to be your starter. I would pay to see you break down Allen's first 2 years just to rub it into the Hurts haters' faces. You guys don't need to pay me. We'll set it up this offseason and do it. Minshew will never challenge Hurts for the spot. If we really want a competition, he ain't the guy. Fair, Michael. I think the one thing Minshew can give you, though, is the ability to read things pre-snap. But he doesn't have tremendous arm talent. I broke it down. People hate me for it, but I broke it down why front offices are passing on Minshew. It's not, Minshew is better than a handful of dudes that start Sunday. I think a lot of us have said that. He's better than a handful of dudes that start on Sunday. But the physical limitations are turning front offices off to the player. Dante said, Jake, there's no point in changing quarterback. Growing pains, man. Hurts gets another year. Minshew ain't it. And there's no quarterback coming out that's good besides let Nick's staff work. Shonoff said, Hurts is a quarterback. This is just a case of athleticism being a gift and a curse. Then he gets to the NFL to find out that there's D lineman that's almost as athletic as, yeah. The NFL's a different world, right? That's very true. Ted said, have you tried the draft mock simulator? I haven't yet. You guys know I always do the draft. I always do those, but we're going to do one inside of the group here. We're going to do the community-based mock draft simulator. So we'll do that for the. Jake said, so is that on the quarterback coach? If his mechanics and foot positioning is off, why hasn't it been fixed yet? Not trying to be rude, genuinely just curious. I know you're smarter when it comes to this. No, man. These are things you can't fix mechanics in season. It's really hard to do that. That's something that occurs in the off season, Jake, because a lot of it's not like Jalen doesn't know his mechanics are off. It's not like Brian Johnson doesn't know his mechanics are off. The problem is that it's one thing when you're in a perfect pocket to easily make a play, right? It's another thing when things break down and instinct takes over. In order to overcome your, instinct and behavior, you need a lot of reps facing that situation and correcting what you're doing. And that's where things get dangerous. And it took Josh Allen, a couple of years to be able to do that. And to be fair, Josh Allen, I think, started more games his rookie year than Hurts did. So you're talking about a longer duration of games too. Jake, the other side of this is I'm not sitting here telling you that he's going to achieve it. I'm saying that I would at least let him compete for the starting job this upcoming year. And if he wins the job, your hope is that you get not a complete Josh Allen story, because you're not wrong in saying that Josh Allen is a different arm talent. You're 100% correct there. But with that said, you're hoping you get similar results to a Josh Allen, to where he starts understanding coverage better and he cleans up his stride on those deep balls. The issue being is when he throws over 20 yards, his base is just all wrong. However, Josh Allen was a long strider, just like Carson Wentz. And then when you look at a guy like Jalen Hurts, he's what we call a short strider. It's what we talk about when we say he gets toesy, right? He's heel clicky. It means he's bringing his feet too close together right before he throws the football, which creates a problem with you getting torque in your hips to throw the football. Richie said, like to see Matt Ryan in Philly as the backup, but he would probably want one last chance to start, say, in Cleveland. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to give up on Baker. You think, though, Richie? Ewing 609 said, Gate, love your morning shows. These quarterback gurus in the chat keep putting their foot in their mouths. I think some of them are just asking genuine questions. And to be fair to them, Ewing, some of them they're just following what reporters are telling them, and they're not realizing that some of these guys are mistaken concepts because they haven't played it. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to do the best I can to correct that and let them know that, like, nah, some of this stuff it's a little misleading. Ted said, just send Hurts to Manning's camp for 2 years. They're friends. They are friends, Ted. I didn't realize that about Peyton Manning and Jalen Hurts, but apparently they're really good friends. Richie said, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield all struggling in the NFL. What does that say about Lincoln Riley's coaching of a pro-style offense? It's not a pro-style offense. You're right on that assumption, Richie. I don't know. I think Kyler Murray is probably the best of these three guys, to be quite honest. I think Kyler Murray has the best, chance. I think Baker's issue is a little bit more dramatic than Jalen's, to be honest. Archer said, people keep confusing arm strength with poor timing. Hurts waits far too late to throw the ball. You're exactly right there. It's 100% correct. It's more so he has bad anticipation of where his wide receivers will be, not poor arm strength. I agree 100%. What's up, Sam? He said, Mike White is Nick Mullins 2.0. If we go get anyone this offseason, it should be a veteran, someone with more experience than Hurts and Minshew as a mentor. I would hope. I think Mike White's arm's a little better than Nick Mullins. But, yes, you remember how angry I was when we signed Nick Mullins. I know my guy Vic 3 was like, man, Gate, why do you hate this guy so much? I'm like, I saw his film. I hate this dude's film. I can't stand this young man's film. I didn't understand what they saw. For the life of me, I'll never understand what the Eagles were trying to do there with Nick Mullins. Dante say, here's $2 for the Hurts haters video. Appreciate you guys. Christian said, Allen was horrible his first few years. Mike White is a prototypical quarterback size and can read. He's a better prospect than in the draft. Bobby Murphy said, Josh Allen went from a 58 completion percentage and 3,000 yards to 69% in 2020 and 4,500 yards to 63% in 2021 with 4,400 yards. He definitely improved as a quarterback. Exactly. And look, I really like Brandon Lee Gowton. Look, the guy who writes for Bleeding Eagles, whatever, I can't remember the name of his website, guys. You know what I'm talking about. I like him a lot. I think he's very level-headed, but I think he misunderstood how similar in certain aspects Jalen Hurts' progression is to Josh Allen and what happened there. I think he kind of discounted how similar they are. But I love Brandon Lee Gowton. I think he's a very level-headed writer. Leave a like. Thank you, Dante. I'll say this. If Hurts gets it, if it clicks, if the game slows down for him, Hurts will be a scary quarterback to play against, especially if the game slows. You're right. And that's the part I cannot predict, show enough. I cannot say it will or won't. But you're right. If it does click for him, it's special. And that's what, JT O'Sullivan in the latest video he did where he broke down Jalen Hurts, he pointed out that, man, this dude's deep ball mechanics are not good. And I don't know what's going on between Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, but something's going on with these progression and reads to where we're missing things. And he was right. He was 1,000% right in what he said. But at the very, right in the middle of the video, it wasn't the end. It was right in the middle of the video. It's right around the 21-minute mark or so, guys. He makes this comment, and it's right after he threw that pass to Devontae in the end zone, in the double coverage, in that bracket coverage. And he says this, he's got to get better. He's got to get better at anticipating and knowing to come off a read. But he did say that if it starts to click for him, holy crap, how talented he's going to be. And that's the struggle and the frustration with a guy like Jalen Hurts. If it clicks, it's special. Nobody knows if it will, though. That's the struggle. Dante said, think Michael Vick, when he got to Philly, all he talked about was how much he learned from Big. Yeah, he talked about he never watched film. Man, dudes were crazy back in the day. I don't know how they, how quarterbacks didn't watch film. That's crazy to me. All the correct ways to quarterback will take years for Hurts to learn. Just saying, I don't think you're necessarily wrong that it's going to be a progression in terms of the knowledge. It's not like he's going to go over 16 games next year from where he is now to Tom Brady. That's not happening. And I don't think he'll ever be Tom Brady because I think their skill sets are completely different. And I think the curve to get there, you're talking about Tom Brady had the health and duration to make it 20 some years at the quarterback position. I hesitate to get people to think that. I don't want people thinking that, because that's a really wrong thought process. That's not what we're trying to get into. AJ Man, excellent question, man. That's an excellent question. He said, you think we'll ever draft a linebacker in the first round against Howie's wisdom? I mean, look, I'll say this. Given my voice is cracking like a 13-year-old. Give me 1 second, guys. Given how important the linebacker position is to this defense, I think we stand a shot of at least being considered much earlier than it's been in recent years, right? I still hesitate when someone says, Gate, they're not taking a linebacker. Put $20 on it. I'm not wasting my $20 because they have history on their side. You know what I mean? Like, so it's hard to say, AJ. It's really difficult to say. Russell said, I think you're giving Hurts way too much credit. The ceiling just isn't there. It's not just reporters making stuff up. Scouts and personnel people around the NFL agree. People disagree and agree on everything, Russell. And to be honest, how are you making that assessment? Because what you did is you appealed to authority. You didn't give me your personal perspective from your knowledge of playing the position. You appealed to authority, which tells me you don't know anything. Not trying to take shots. I'm just being honest. It tells me you don't know what you're talking about because you didn't actually provide any analysis. Jake said, also curious, what did you think of Wentz's season? Do you think it was worse or better than most fans think? I never really liked Wentz. I feel like he knew he had bad mechanics, but he never fixed it. I always thought Carson Wentz was going to get there. I always did, Jake, to be honest. I always thought it was going to click for him because I saw what he could do in 2017, although he was overthrowing dudes in 17, to be honest. But he didn't put in the time and effort. He didn't put in the time and effort to fix those things. And I think that he became a different athlete after the knee and back. After he suffered the knee injury, then he suffered the back injury. I thought the dude that we got that followed was not as good. Minshew reads the defense fast, and it's a shame he has no interest in helping Hurts. Was it a mistake bringing in Minshew instead of McCown type, that guy who could help instead of rooting against him? Yes and no. You can argue that a more experienced quarterback would have the patience to work with a young guy, and that's where Joe Flacco kind of came in. But Flacco still wanted to compete and take the job too, to be honest. And saying that, Minshew is cheap. You know what I'm saying? Minshew is cheap. And you know that he can give you enough to win a game if a guy goes down. Hard to say if it was a good or bad decision based upon that. What's the knock on Kenny Pickett? The biggest knock you're going to hear coming from coaches is that he's got smaller hands. Scouts are going to talk about his hand size. His hand size is small for quarterback. They're going to talk about whether or not he can play inside of inclement weather, Chris. He played in the UNC game in a heavy downpour of rain, and it didn't seem to affect him. So, people, I like to make the joke. I call him Allie, a person I do a lot of live streams with. We call him Small Hands Kenny, Tiny Hands Pickett. But truth be told, the biggest concern there is that it's kind of like Joe Burrow. You don't know what you're going to get here because you're dealing with a 1-year sample size of like crazy production. But he's played a lot of football. He's played a lot of football at Pitt. So, I mean, it's not like he's, you know what I'm saying? It's not like he's saying that. Russell said Josh Allen has 100 times more arm talent than Hurts. Hurts and Allen aren't comparable at all. Russell, stop, man, because I will bring you on this channel and embarrass you. You don't want it, man. You don't want it, dude. You don't know what you're talking about. Yes, Josh Allen has a way better arm. What the hell does arm strength have to do with this conversation? We're talking about reading coverage, not how fast a guy can zip the ball in from ball velocity. Come back at me when you know what you're talking about. Jalen Williams said, Hurts' arm strength is fine. Hurts' arm talent isn't lacking, but is nothing overly special. With that being said, Hurts has to have anticipation as a constant in his game. He has to develop that. You're right. And that's what I was talking about earlier on, Jalen, which is when you look at this from a progression read to where I'm going 1, 2, and 3. I know that my first read on a progression read comes off of my rhythm step. I have to hit that rhythm step and anticipate where my receiver is going to be. And I have to do that pre-snap. And I think that's where Jalen is struggling. I think it's also why people get angry and say, Gate, he's locking onto his first receiver, because they don't realize that that's kind of a side effect of progression reads. it kind of causes you to lock onto your first receiver. Richie said, what type of quarterback talent will the USFL have? They can poach NFL talent on practice squads. Hard to say, man. Hard to say. Josh Allen got help from Tony Romo. No, he didn't. Josh Allen got help from Palmer out in California. All right, Russell, I'm done talking to you, bro, because you don't know what you're talking about. You have no clue what you're talking about. You're not presenting any logical argument. All you're giving is hot takes, but you're not providing any substance. Come at me when you have substance to your point. Because so far, I can tell you've never played the position, and you don't know jack crap about the position. Would Peterson have Jalen playing better as a passer at this point? Argumentative, man. I'm not going to say would or wouldn't Des Cookies because that's like trying to predict the future. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't, it's like being like almost like an alternative universe. It's hard to say. We can maybe argue he would have built a different scheme around him and made him more successful in that way. But to be fair, D's Cookies, to be fair, his coaching staff wasn't known for developing players. You know what I mean? Outside of Stoutland. Yeah, I guess it's just frustrating seeing Hurts make the same mistakes, but I have to remember this stuff takes time to develop. Yeah, and that's the thing is nobody can say if Hurts will or won't get there. That's really difficult to say. But I do know that there's been similar quarterbacks in the league who had really, really big challenges with reading defenses, and it took them a couple of years. And because front offices and coaching staff stayed patient with them, they achieved the ceiling. Christian said, you cannot learn anticipation or ability to read. Am I wrong? It seems to me spatial awareness you have or don't have. No, I disagree with that. There's an aspect to it that is there, which is it's not like once you reach the league, like you don't understand coverages. Like if you still don't understand what coverage is, like that's a problem, right? Once you reach this level. But when we're talking about changing habits. You're talking about rewiring habits. And that comes through seeing coverage and seeing it multiple times and being put in certain particular game situations, whether it's in the off season as you develop or if it's in game with experience, and then basically reversing your habits. Now, I think the challenging part to that is it's really difficult to change guys' habits. You know what I mean? That's not an easy thing to do. Like you're talking about reversing behavior, and reversing behavior takes a lot of time. And you're always going to be uncomfortable that a dude will fall right back into that behavior eventually. Sam said, Hurts is so athletic. Is it worth the gamble on his ceiling? You could argue Lamar Jackson is the only comparison right now, and Hurts might be a more nuanced passer. Yeah, I wouldn't even say that. I'm not going to say that he's comparable necessarily to Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson, I think, athletically is just a different dude. But yeah, I can see what you're going with, Sam. I can see where you're going with it. Not going to lie, I watched some film yesterday. What I saw so far from Desmond Ridder is probably worth a 1. I like Desmond Ridder. I don't know if he's worth a 1, but he's probably going to go in the first future. I definitely think there's a very good possibility he becomes a first-round pick. Matt Hatter said, Vic went from a 55% passer in Atlanta to 60% with the Eagles. Sometimes scheme has a lot to do with that, though, Matt Hatter, to be honest. Why don't quarterbacks' arms get stronger over time after years in the weight room? They do, Tommy. The golden example is Tom Brady. Tom Brady skipped the ball velocity drill at the combine because he knew he wasn't going to put up a good reading. He knew he didn't have a strong arm. But from Tom Brady going all the way back to like 2000, going all the way up to 2019. In 2019, he had a ball velocity reading of 61 miles per hour. That's Josh Allen and like straight up Aaron Rodgers level area of ball velocity readings. So, I mean, there are dudes that get better. Peyton Manning improved his arm strength throughout the years. Although, people look at guys and they say, like, he never had a good arm. Doesn't mean he didn't improve the arm strength. You look at Drew Brees. Drew Brees improved his arm strength over the years. Those guys in particular are the ones that people normally look to when they talk about developing your game and getting a stronger arm. So, like, Gardner Minshew could make slight incremental increases in his arm strength over time. It is very possible for a guy like Gardner Minshew to get in the weight room, I'm not the type of guy to teach that. There are camps that do that. I never worked I work more with fundamentals than I do with the strengthening of the arm stuff. With that said, it's not like a 1 year turnaround on arm strength. Like you got to keep doing that throughout the duration of your career, and then over 4 or 5 years, you're going to be a different type quarterback. You know what I mean? Because we're talking about very, very subtle movements, right? Think about it. From 54 to 57 miles per hour is only 3 miles per hour. But we're talking about a completely different type of quarterback at a 54 mile per hour velocity mark than 57 mile per hour velocity mark. You get what I'm saying? Wentz has the Bradford personality. I only appeal to people who get paid millions to do a job. So you think that, dude, I can tell you're a young kid. So you think that because someone gets paid millions of dollars, that makes them correct in their assumption of something? Tell me what you think. And why are you trying to compare this to a vaccination? Like, you're creating a straw man argument, young man. You're not smart enough to have this discussion with me. Hurts can now be judged on his ability to learn. Not everyone's to teach him. Hurts is but see, future. It's not like he's not willing to learn. He's very amenable to coaching. It is people's job to teach them, man. To be fair, it's what being a coach is. Great point, Jalen. Also, sports writers go to school to learn to write journalism, not to understand the game they are watching. A lot of writers play on emotions for clicks. Exactly. Their main job is to garner attention, not to educate. Reading coverage, exactly. Yeah, he's got to get better. Exactly, Dante. Russell, no, you're saying back in 2022 because of those people, but Gates is saying back in 2019 those same people were ready to get rid of him. Exactly. Jake says Gates doesn't play. I don't mean to be mean, but like I could tell he's young. – 2020 said NFL scouts and personnel have changed their minds on Hurts, including former general managers. That's very true. It's very true. I changed my mind 2020. you know that I was a little like, I like this dude 4 years from now. I was definitely like, I didn't think that he could make the advancements he made as quickly as he did. Thank you, Steve, for your question and answers. Makes the morning enjoyable. No problem, Richie. Playing quarterback in high school or some bum JUCO doesn't make you an authority on the position. Compared to you, I'm your king. Vincent said, just watching so many people argue Hurts has no arm is mind-boggling. It makes me wonder, like, what are they even watching and what other takes are so disillusioned? Yeah, it's hard. Matt Adder said, Russell, what he's telling you is you're a moron. Jake Gets Kicked says, so when you watch these other Eagles YouTubers and majority of them don't know what they're talking about, you must be shaking your head. No, I mean, like, I have a good relationship with most of these guys. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, like, Mike's my guy. Like, me, Mike, and Reese, like, Philly Fresh, like, those two are like my brothers. So I talk to them the most, and I pass on knowledge to them of what I know. LB and I talk a lot. I like 500. Me and 500 talk a lot. I do the best I can to help bring perspective to something that I'm seeing or report it. But you know how it is, man. Like, guys have different areas. Like, when it comes to offensive line and defensive line, I like to defer to people like Jalen Williams because I know that they play collegiately, and I know that there's concepts and things from a technique perspective that they get that I don't quite understand yet. So it's all about, like, different guys have played a different thing. Reese is really good at evaluating running backs. Philly Fresh, because he played running back in high school. He's actually sneaky good at evaluating running backs. What's up, Michael? He said, Russell, just chill and stop being a jerk. Everyone has their own opinion. No need to act wild. Jalen said anticipation for a quarterback is the game slowing down for them and identifying the right things. You're very right there. Similar to an offensive lineman seeing a stun or a blitz, it's mind play. It's a combination of calm, comfort in the moment. You're very right. All right, guys, I got to jump off here. It is 11:10. I don't know how y'all do this, man, but y'all be keeping me on here forever, and I don't even realize that it's, it's 2 hours and 5 minutes into a live stream, and we're 11:10. I will be back tomorrow morning, guys, 9:05. My ending opinion on this, guys, is I like what Future said here. This is kind of where I'm at. Hurts isn't out of the mix, but last year he was above the mix. I think that's a good perspective, Future. And that's kind of like what I would end on. Like my perspective is that he's not cooked, but I do expect the Eagles front office to probably be making plans. I would like to see him get an opportunity because I don't want to use these draft picks on things that are related to quarterbacks. To me, I just think that the roster around this has to get a lot better. I don't think it's there yet, guys, personally. All right, y'all. I appreciate you guys. We'll be back tomorrow at 9:05. I'll make a video tonight. We're going to start breaking down contracts. I'm going to start with free agent contracts. Why don't we I'll do Brandon Brooks tonight, guys. We're going to go over Brandon Brooks' contract because I think that's the big one. All right. So see y'all tonight on your way out, guys. You can hit that like button. I appreciate you guys. See y'all tomorrow. We'll see you tonight and then tomorrow. Later, guys.